Good morning and welcome to Morning Scoop for Tuesday, March 22nd. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The spring game is in 25 days, the Notre Dame game in 165 days, the game against Michigan in 249 days. The Ohio State football team is back on the practice field today after a week off for spring break. This will be the third practice of spring, and head coach Ryan Day will meet with the media afterwards to discuss the latest with the program. While the Buckeyes were enjoying some time off, some potential future Ohio State players were hard at work at the Ohio Under Armour Camp. Marc Givler was there working hard as well. He joins me this morning to discuss some of the big prospects to know out of that event. Marc, thanks for being here.
Yep, been a little bit, so ready for camp season.
Yeah, it is fun when the weather starts getting a little warmer, and the high school football players come out of hibernation, and it's like, oh, good, we can start watching some football stuff again. That's always a good time. Let's start with a name that I think a lot of people might recognize. Austin Ceveld. He is an offensive lineman out of Middletown, Ohio. That is a town that has produced a few pretty good players for Ohio State over the years. He's actually scheduled to visit Ohio State today, so he has an OSU offer. So, Marc, I mean, he seems like a candidate to be, one of the next two guys to potentially commit. What did you see out of him when you got to watch him over the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, he was probably my surprise of the day. I thought it was interesting when they offered him back in the fall. At that point, he didn't have much recruiting juice. It's not like he had a Michigan offer or a Notre Dame offer at that point. That's generally a guy you would think Ohio State may wait on, may make him camp, may, let other schools offer first before they throw their hat into the ring. So it was a little interesting to me, the timing of that. And then I think everyone thought, oh, he'll just commit and take it. And he never did. To this point, has not taken the offer yet. So he's been an interesting one to follow. And he was really good on Sunday in pass protection and one-on-ones. And he comes out of a triple option offense. So that was, again, one of the biggest surprises of the day. I've seen a lot of triple option kids. They go to these things and they just kind of get eaten for lunch because they're not used to pass protection, and it's kind of skewed to the defensive lineman anyway, and it's not real football. It's just kind of a drill, and I think people kind of put too much stock in it sometimes. But you see guys like him struggle in these things all the time. He was actually very good, really strong kid, surprisingly quick. I wasn't expecting him to be so quick laterally. So I think he went from a guy that I was like, well, should they have offered him? And should they have offered him, when they did, to now kind of thinking, wow, this is a legit four-star kid for me. Maybe like a top 200 type of kid. Whereas I think some people think he, had maybe as a three-star coming into the event. So as far as where the expectations were, and then what he, how he performed, I thought Austin was maybe my pleasant surprise of the camp. And we'll see what happens with recruiting. He's very quiet kid, does not like the process. Ohio State, Alabama, Notre Dame probably are his top three. He wouldn't say that, but it kind of feels that way right now. I like where Ohio State stands, but again, he's a kid who doesn't like the process, doesn't like talking to the coaches, and but he's gonna get a chance to do that here, obviously, later today. Gonna get up there and watch practice and hang out with the coaches and do some academics tours, I think, and stuff like that. So could definitely be a kid that's in the class in the next few months.
All right, and another in-state prospect visiting Ohio State today is Galloway. He is a tight end prospect out of Chillicothe. He seems like he's someone else who's kind of seen his recruitment sort of pick up over the last few months. I've seen him at Michigan recently, and I think a few other places. What should people know about him? What did you see out of him over the weekend? Yeah,
he was tight end MVP. I don't know, the tight end was like one of the stronger groups there, but still, he's a young guy. He's a 2024, so he's a lot of guys there were a year older. I thought he was the best tight end there. I thought that was a good pick for the award. He's got a really strong build. He can go vertical. He can catch the ball. He's a kid who has the build to be a good blocker, to be an inline tight end, and I wouldn't overthink this if I were Ohio State. I don't know that, I don't think anyone's going to be calling Ohio State tight end U anytime soon. I think, they generally, they go out and they kind of get these unassuming guys, the Sam Hart, Bennett Christian, these aren't the, the OJ Howards of the world necessarily, or the Mike Mayers of the world, the big 5-star guys. Luke Farrell's another one, did very well at Ohio State. So I wouldn't overthink this. I think Galloway's, certainly on that level, if not even a tier above some of those guys as prospects. And so I think you look at him in June. Obviously, he's going to camp. But I don't think I would slow play this one. I don't think there's some 5-star generational talent that's lined up to come to Ohio State and play tight end at this point. I think I would just move on Tavion Galloway and get that ball rolling. I think he's plenty good enough.
All right, so we went 2023, 2024. Let's talk about a 2025. A name that I'm guessing most people at least know peripherally, at the very least, is Ryan Montgomery. He's a 2025 quarterback, the younger brother of 2023 offensive line commit Luke Montgomery. It sounds like, from what you were reporting over the weekend, like Ryan has continued to improve since the last time you saw him.
Yeah, he threw it well on Sunday. I think what was interesting is he's put on about 15 pounds, probably since maybe the start of his season. So going back, I guess, about 6 months. I think he's put on about 15 pounds. He's getting bigger. Really good zip. Looks like, I made this kind of comment on the board. We talk about offering the freshman quarterback, which always scares me to death. I typically wouldn't do it. But he's not one of those kids who, is maxed out at 15 years old. I talked about, Danny Clark. Danny Clark, when he was, 15, 16 years old, looked like he was 20. There wasn't much room for physical growth there. It's just a kid that looked like he was maxed out. Ryan, when he was offered, he's got the baby face. He doesn't look like he's done growing. He doesn't look like he's done developing physically. So what I'm just looking for now is, continued physical development and continued improvement. And I saw that on Sunday. And so I think things are moving in the right direction for him as a developmental prospect. Again, I'm still a little leery of quarterbacks, getting too far ahead of ourselves on a quarterback prospect this early. But I saw what I wanted to see on Sunday in terms of improvement and physical growth.
A lot of times you'll have the quarterback be the first guy in the class, and they don't have their 2023 quarterback yet. So a 2025 quarterback is way down the road, it seems like. But do you have a sense for, is he someone who's going to let it play out for another couple of years, or is he someone who, a year from now might be thinking like, hey, maybe be the class leader, be one of the first guys in, and start build the class wherever he ends up?
Yeah, I get the sense right now that he's not in a hurry to decide. I think so much of the last year has been focused on Luke, his older brother, obviously committed to Ohio State. I think so much of that has been about him, and even some of the visits they took together was just so centered around Luke that Ryan is kind of excited to start his own process here this spring and make visits for himself and not just tagging along with his brother. That being said, you go through this for 6 to 12 months. A lot of kids do get sick of it. And Ryan doesn't strike me as an attention seeker. He doesn't strike me as someone who is going to want to do all the interviews the next 3 years. So I could see, maybe 12 to 18 months down the road, I could see him maybe saying enough is enough here. But he definitely is not going to commit, this spring or summer or anything like that. He's gonna take some trips, some visits, watch some quarterback gurus around the country, kind of see where he fits, who he likes. Watch the coaching carousel the next 2 years. I mean, he watched his brother lose his position coaches and his main recruiters at like 3 different schools within like a couple weeks of each other. So I think he's learned as well as anyone what can happen with coaching movement. So I think he'll be a little cautious on that. But yeah, I could see it. Maybe 12 plus months down the road, maybe he could start to zero things in.
Yeah, I could imagine, committing 30 to 33 months out, you could have the entire coaching staff wherever you commit, at literally every player on the roster, like pretty much everyone could be gone before you get there. Like, I mean, we always say commit to a school, not to a coach, but that would be taking it to quite an extreme. So yes, 12 to 18 months seems like a very reasonable time frame at the very earliest. We are headed into a huge month for visits in the lead up to the spring game. Are there like 1 or 2 that you're particularly interested in tracking right now, either as guys who might commit or guys who Ohio State is getting, their one big shot with or their one last shot with?
Well, I think the one that's interesting, if and it hasn't been finalized yet, but AJ Harris, that's looking like 5-star cornerback out of Columbus, Georgia, or Alabama, I guess technically is where he goes to high school. But he is looking at an official visit for April. They need to have that happen. There's been a lot going on there. They were in great shape with AJ, maybe going back 4 or 5 months ago. Kerry Combs doesn't come back. That was his guy. Defensive staff shakeup. He's building new relationships with new coaches. Corey Raymond goes from LSU to Florida, which I think has become more appealing for AJ than LSU was. Just had a really good visit there. Georgia's still in the mix. Clemson's still in the mix. Alabama a little bit. But I think Ohio State, even if it's not an official, needs to get that momentum back a little bit with a visit. And so that's the one I'm looking forward to. I still think they can win that. But they have to, but again, they've got to get him back up. They've got to let him spend a day or two, with Tim Walton, with Perry Eliano, with Jim Knowles. What's the defense going to look like? How do I fit? Because he went through all this with Combs and was going to commit. There's really no doubt in my mind he was going to commit to Ohio State this winter. And once the rumor mill started kicking up and it became even before it was even public, when it was just kind of a rumor that Kerry Combs may not be back. That gave him pause. Then Combs officially leaves, and it's like, wow, starting from square one again with Ohio State. So that's the big thing for me to watch here the next few weeks. I think there's some other guys who are going to get on campus that we're going to talk about on the site and everything else. But for me, in terms of like an immediate, there's some urgency there, I think, that maybe isn't there with some of these other guys.
Yeah, that was a really, really interesting one, because I remember talking to you all last fall, and it was like, look, they look good. They look good for him. They look good for him. And there was a game that he visited for, and they made a big point to like have him talk to Matt Barnes on the sidelines. Like, well, just in case Kerry Combs isn't here, you can kind of see the subtext. Like, well, at least you know Matt Barnes, and now Matt Barnes is at Memphis and Kerry Combs is at Cincinnati, and there's really are starting from scratch there. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch. A lot of the stuff we've talked about now is going to be part of your very popular Skull Session column, which you're going to be dropping at Buckeye Scoop today. But let people know, if there's anything else in there that might be of interest, and then where they can find that. Yeah,
you should go to the Ask Insiders board on Buckeye Scoop. It's going to have a full, position by position rundown Under Armour camp, not just observations from the camp, but also some recruiting information, some things. Just talking, I got to talk to a lot of players, a lot of parents, some coaches, some sources at the camp on Sunday. So that's all going to be in there, position by position rundown. And I got a little bit of stuff on quarterbacks. I know that's always going to be a hot topic. 2023 is kind of a bizarre year, just because of the lack of seemingly legitimate targets, coupled with all the chaos of 2022 and everything that went on there with the guy from Texas who we won't name, and the Devin Brown, and how that all played out, and it kind of put Ohio State behind the 8 ball a little bit in 2023. And so I'll go into a little bit of that, kind of where things stand there, and we'll talk a little bit, about some other pressing issues coming up here the next few weeks.
All right, that should be a fun read. I'm looking forward to checking that out on Tuesday. So, Marc, thank you for joining me, and make sure you check out all of our great podcasts. Marc hosts one of them. It is the Gives in the Bank podcast. He does that with Bill the Bank Green, two guys who know a heck of a lot about recruiting and college football, and are always a really interesting listen. You can find that wherever you find the Morning Scoop, wherever you find Buckeye Weekly with Tony Gerdman and I, wherever you find Kevin Noon's Big Me Kickoff, wherever you find Alex Gleitman's Around the Oval. They're all wherever you find this. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of them. You can subscribe right there and leave us a 5-star rating and review as well, which will help other folks find those shows. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.